First off, if you're the family of Datchinamurthy Kataiah, my deepest condolences. I'm sorry you lost a son, a husband, a friend, and a hero, as I'm sure that he was to many of you. But today I want to ask a broader and deeper question. Should the Singaporean government have executed Datchinamurthy Kataiah? Datchinamurthy Kataiah, otherwise known as Dutch, was a death row prisoner from Malaysia. I say was because just yesterday at around 2 PM, he was executed by the Singaporean government for transporting 44.96 grams of diamorphine in Singapore. Since Singapore's Misuse of Drugs Act carries a mandatory death penalty for anyone who brings in more than 15 grams of diamorphine or heroin, Dutch was way over the legal limit and had to be subjected to the death penalty under the law. It's a pretty complex timeline. I'm not going to talk about every single part of it, but you can read the entire sequence of what happened here. And for years, his family, civil society, NGOs, from Transform Justice in Singapore to Lawyers for Liberty, fought for him, crying, screaming, delaying, and delaying. He appealed to Tony Tan, Halimah Yacob, Tharman, even the Pope, to ask for forgiveness, to seek clemency, to have his sentence commuted from an execution over to life imprisonment plus caning. And in the end, on the 25th of September, Dutch's family was told that they could pick up his body at 3 PM. And there we go, the end of the line. You know, through all of those years, Dutch became a voice for an entire generation of people who didn't want the death penalty to continue, along with his fellow inmates like Pannir Selvam, Jumaat bin Muhammad Syed, Linkesvaran, and Saminathan Selvaraju. And if you just read the coverage, it becomes very easy to just conclude that this was a man who was in desperation, he didn't know any better, and he was forced into this situation. Does it matter that this is the golden triangle? He made a mistake one time, and for that mistake, you're willing to go out and kill him? How can you do something so horrible? Which really makes people go out and then say that the state is horrible, they've killed our children, and raises all sorts of questions like, why are you going after the small fry and then letting corrupt politicians, child abusers, and even murderers get away while you take the life of this poor, innocent man? Well, I'm sorry, but he's not so innocent after all. I'm not saying that lightly, by the way. Read the judgment and you'll understand that when Dutch got caught, he didn't get caught alone. Have you heard the name Christeen Jayamani? Yeah, if you're like most people, then you probably haven't. So let's hear about Christeen. The case for which Dutch was charged is not called Singapore Government versus Datchinamurthy Kataiah. No, it is literally Public Prosecutor versus Christeen Jayamani and another. Well, when Singapore's CND arrested them both on 18th of January, the same day, the same amount, but she got life in prison and he got execution. Why?
Lawyers for Liberty said it was because of discrimination, but actually, it was because she was considered a courier and he was not.
The court found him guilty of trafficking.
Which, by the way, is much worse than just being a courier, and Singapore's legal system presumes guilt.
Now, the story that a lot of people believe, and that you probably know if you don't read beyond the surface, is that on one day, Dutch came into Singapore, bringing in drugs and was caught by the police and then was sentenced to death. But actually, no, it's not like that. There's a whole drama here involving this guy called Raja. Apparently our man Dutch just received a couple of bags, didn't know what they were, thought that it was Chinese medicine. It was just one time only, please forgive him. But then it turns out that he's also giving $200 to this unemployed woman in financial difficulty. Every single transaction, arranged sketchily, she's collecting money, passing it to Dutch, apparently never questioning whether what she's taking and delivering to people is illegal or drugs at all. Even as he is calling her and saying that if you can get more customers to buy the jaman, then you will get even more money. With just Christeen, there were transactions on the 7th, the 14th, and the 18th of January. And just Christeen, by the way. And the grams of heroin were literally just that single transaction, which is what Singapore could weigh, assess, and measure out. Not even including the rest of what he had brought in, or whether there were other Christeens out there who still haven't been punished. And I guess you could say that he had taken the risk to lose his life. He's in desperation. Why aren't you blaming the head of the syndicate? But in case you kind of forgot,
It's not like he was forced to deal drugs. I mean, he could have just, gotten a job like the rest of us. And sure, you cry for him, but why don't you cry for the people whose lives he's ruined?
He didn't just lose his life, he caused another person to lose her life. He coordinated, he recruited, he's done this at least 3 times. We have no idea how many times or how much experience he actually had. Can you really be called innocent if you're literally roping in other people, preying on their desperation, corrupting them, and literally causing them to get life in prison? Yeah, I don't think so. So if you're going all like, come on! Your law is wrong! How could you presume? Force him to have complex legal arguments, defend himself, because he can't get a king's counsel. Well, have you actually thought about how many people would actually die because of the drugs that he brought in? Probably not, I guess. But look, right? According to the MHA and also to the medical science, 15 grams of heroin alone is basically 1,250 straws of heroin. CNB said that 44.96 grams of diamorphine, which is the name for heroin, is sufficient to feed the addiction of about 540 addicts for about a week. But if you think about it, actually the impact is potentially much worse than that. According to the research from this meta-analysis, which I got from PubMed, if you are a new heroin user, you have about a 30% chance of becoming addicted or dependent, meaning you keep buying and stimulating demand, getting more Dutches in, destroying your entire life, hollowing yourself out, just so you can get the drug. Of course, that's just based on 100% theory, but the point is, right, even with the amount that he brought in, if it successfully managed to get to its customers, right, it could potentially ruin, if not thousands, then at least hundreds of people's lives. And look, I know that some of you out there will be all like, oh, come on, it's just other people. How can you kill this one person for bringing in drugs, recruiting people, coordinating, getting money? He's so desperate. Yeah. Are you listening to yourself right now? Because you sound ridiculous. Look, I know just how bad drugs can be. You can say no demand, no supply, stop the chain. But I can tell you for a fact that people who use drugs, often they use them because they are weak. And because I think this is so important, there's no better example that I can give than myself. And it's not great to say this, but like when I was in college, I experienced what it's like to actually have a marijuana addiction. At that point in the US, it was decriminalized already, but it's true that I was weak. It's true that I was using it when I was in the middle of extreme academic stress, seeking it out even when I should not have. It's not heroin, but it's like I had no control over myself, I had no control over my life, I had no control over what I wanted to do. I was a slave. I'm glad to be able to like graduate from college and everything like that, but that was because I cut it off cold turkey. And I cannot even imagine what my life would have been like, right, if I continued basically in that state. There's no question about it, it was an addiction. I behaved badly to the people that I met. And it's probably too late coming now, but from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry for my bad behavior. I'm not saying this to make you feel sorry for me, but I'm just here to say that addiction is a very real problem. And it's not just evil tycoons that are keeping this entire thing going. It's also the fact that you are literally supplying this into the market and people are socializing, thinking that, oh, this is actually an option now, and then proceeding to go out there and so-called recreationally take things, but then it turns out that they actually end up destroying their relationships, destroying their lives, destroying everything that's actually meaningful to them. And I could have been one of those people who was destroyed. Like, it was a very real possibility, but it's just by a miracle that things didn't happen that way. So I don't want to lose people. I don't want to get other people thinking, oh, let me go ahead and take this chance because I've been down that path. I know it's not a good path. If you think about all these people out there who are just literally taking heroin day in and day out, right? Can you imagine how much worse their lives would be? All of those broken families, broken parts of society, poor people down on their luck, engaging in destructive behavior, increasing the rates of crime, poverty, violence, and everything else in the society. I mean, when Luigi Mangione killed that insurance CEO, a lot of you cheered because apparently the CEO had killed hundreds of people because his company had rejected a ton. But here when it comes to Dutch, the drugs that he brought in over and over again have the potential to kill literally hundreds if not thousands of people at this point. And you're saying the Singaporean government isn't justified in conducting the death penalty to establish deterrence? Well, I think it's time for us to remember something very important here. All life is sacred, but if you're taking an action that can literally end up destroying thousands of lives, even if there are people who want to take part in it, you have to remember that people are weak. don't have self-control, and that's what keeps this entire thing going. So long as people are thinking that it is okay for them to take the risk, do what they so-called need, and so on and so forth. Datchinamurthy Kataiah's life was surely sacred to his friends, his family, and everybody who knew and loved him. But then so is the life of every single father, mother, daughter, or son who ends up taking drugs and then ends up destroying their lives. Dutch's life is sacred, but are their lives not sacred as well? He was forced into it, they wanted it. He made a mistake one time, he should be forgiven. But could we not say that drug addicts buy drugs because they are forced into it, they made a mistake one time, and the temptation was there all along in their moment of greatest weakness? So yes, I know that a lot of people are saying rest in power Dutch. You are thinking of him as an example for the next generation. Maybe you are planning even more campaigns to protest against the death penalty. But frankly, in my honest opinion, I know this will hurt some of you, but I think that the best example that Dutch could have presented is his death. I'm sorry to say that, but I think that that's absolutely true. The whole point of the mandatory death penalty for trafficking and not just couriering is to say to anybody who wants to traffic drugs, right? Look, if you want to go out there and destroy our entire society in the hundreds, in the thousands or whatever, then we will put you to death. That is the punishment. We are firm in that punishment, we commit to it. It doesn't have to be a Malaysia, Singapore issue or anything else. You break the laws, then you receive the punishment. You cannot be going out there and then saying that, oh, I didn't know about the law. If that were a defense, right, then I can literally just go out there and then commit any number of crimes, ranging from shoplifting to grand larceny, assault to slander. And then when the po come along, then I just say to them, oh, sorry officer, aku tak tahu lah. Aku buat salah ke? Aku buat salah ke? Obviously, it doesn't work that way. And with drug trafficking, let it be known, with this case, let the big signs telling you that you will receive the death penalty if you're trafficking drugs into Singapore serve as a reminder to you. And one of the many reasons why you cannot be going out there and saying, oh, I didn't know about the law. Sure, you can criticize any number of laws, the way some people like PJ Thumb do when they criticize POFMA or any number of other relevant laws in Singapore. But since some people are trying to make it a diplomatic issue, have you considered what happens in Malaysia, in Kelantan and Terengganu, where all these people are just addicted to drugs all day, do no work, complain on the internet, cry, scream, throw out racist vitriol without end, while slowly dying at the hands of drugs? It is that bad, and it can be even worse, bros. And that's not what we want in any society in the world. And as I said, I've experienced it, I know how bad it can be. I thank God that life didn't get to a point where I reached a point of no return. And I'm still here just casually chatting with all of you, saying that I believe from the bottom of my heart that this was the best way to go. To Dutch's family, I'm sorry if you feel that this hurts your feelings, your memories for the son that you once raised. But everything that I've said is what I truly believe. I know it offers no solace for you even as you go out and campaign against the Singaporean government. But I hope your time of grieving will lead to a greater clarity, even as you think of everything that happened, and I hope that everything will go well for you. And to all the activists who somehow want to use this case in order to end the death penalty, I hope you will at least think about why the death penalty is in place. And understand that it's not just about destroying one single life, but instead it's about destroying the entire community, the entire society. And if you're going to fight just for these issues without considering the bigger picture, not only are you going to be disappointed and call the government cruel over and over again, but in the worst case scenario, you're going to enable more people to become like Dutch or Pannir or any of the other people out there who, unfortunately, in many cases, are not just victims. So please, stop putting these people on pedestals. Lastly, to Dutch, I'm pretty sure that you can't hear this right now. You probably never will. But again, buddy, rest in peace. And I hope that your memory will serve a higher cause, even if it wasn't in the way that you intended. But well, what do you think, Sir Poops? Should the Singaporean government have executed Dutch? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's all to say about that, and bye.